Yeah, that's Shadow. That's my old cat. Hey, friends and neighbors, I'm back. I had someone ask me in the comments about, well, it was Shane, asked me why there was so many river boats sink in this area. And you see the big cottonwood trees out there. Well, this whole river, it's the riverbank. Shadow, you're being a pain in the ass. Is lined and was lined with those big cottonwood trees. And down in this area now, in after the flood of 52, I believe it was, they channelized the river, and they dug it out, and they put wing dikes lined with big granite rocks sticking out to slow the river down. And it's still, right now that it's channelized, it flows 7 miles an hour. And but you get further northwest of us, like up at Ponca, Vermilion, South Dakota, Yankton, South Dakota. Now up at Yankton, there's a big dam, Gavins Point Dam. But there are places where the river, like between Vermilion and Yankton, the river wasn't channelized. It's wide, and there are shallow spots, big sandbars, but there are deep spots. But anyway, the reason there were so many paddle boats and steamships that sunk in this area, the riverbanks were lined with these big cottonwood trees. And the river, it changed. This whole area, Sioux City area, Sergeant Bluff, which is right across the river at the airport, and where we live here, this is all Missouri River bottom, where the river has gone back and forth from one line of hills to the other. Now you go 6 miles west of us, and there's hills, big steep hills. And you go probably about the same amount of miles to the east on the other side of the river, and there's big hills. They're called loess hills. It's some special kind of soil, and I don't know, you'll have to look that up on DuckDuckGo or something and find out exactly what it is. But anyway, the river meandered back and forth, changing course over the years, and it would wash these cottonwood trees out of the banks. And the trees would break up sometimes, but the paddle boats would get caught up on the snags, and the snags could be branches, but a lot of times it would be the root balls of these cottonwood trees. The tree itself, the main part of the tree, would be under the water. Shadow, you're in the way. Like the tops of the trees may break out and what have you, but the root balls would stay intact in the trunk, and the root balls would be under the surface. Well, a paddle boat, it's all pretty much wood, would come up or down the river, and it would get caught on those root balls, and the roots would be just like the branches in the tops, and it would just rip boards out of the hull of the boat, and they'd go down. Now, from what I understand, the river, most everybody survived these riverboat sinkings. Some people did drown, but few did. And the reason was the river was fairly shallow. Excuse me. In the places where these boats had sunk. And that was part of the reason they sunk, is because the river was shallow. The root balls or the tree branches were just underneath the surface of the water, and the boats would get hung up and rip holes in the hulls. In here just last week, I believe it was, up between Vermilion and Yankton, South Dakota, the river is so low right now, it exposed the hull of one of these boats, and I wish I could recall the name of that boat, but it exposed what is left of the hull. Now, many of these boats were insured, some weren't, but the insurance companies would pay people, if they didn't have a crew in the area of their own, to come and unload these boats and carry the goods ashore and you know, salvage what they could. They would even take out the boilers and the engines and you know, pretty much everything that was metal was salvaged for another boat. But I want to keep this short, so, and we're already, what, 7 minutes. So anyway, that is the reason there was so many of these river boats that have sunk in this area, from these cottonwood trees and the root balls and the tree branches, when the trees would fall into the river. So that's that gives you a little idea on the reason there were so many of these river boats that sunk. Now, the train bridge that goes from the Nebraska to the Sioux City, Iowa side of the river, and I should get that on video one of these days. That bridge was built in the 1800s, and it just got rebuilt in 1982. And there's at least one train goes over that bridge every day. But the riverboat Benton, it sunk right where that bridge is, right where that railroad bridge is. And but if you guys want a little more in-depth on this, let me know, and I'll go up to the Sergeant Floyd Monument. If I understand this correctly, he was the only one on the Lewis and Clark expedition that died during the expedition. He wasn't killed by Indians. He got sick, if I remember right, and died. And they built a big monument on top of the hill right along the river there, up by Sioux City. So, and like I said, this spring, if you guys want, I will go to the Sergeant Floyd Riverboat Museum and do a video there. So anyway, hope that gives you an idea of what happened, and we'll go from there. And like I said, if you want more on this, more in depth, and you're interested in seeing the Sergeant Floyd Monument and the Sergeant Floyd Museum this summer when it opens, let me know. Leave a comment down below. Shoot, we're almost up to 10 minutes already. All right, thank you, friends and neighbors. Have a good evening.